your children were like a bargaining chip, and you could use them to sort of get ahead in life, have your children get ahead in life by giving them like religious symbolism, or if they were enshrined as like a child emperor. And so letting the monks have sexual access to your children apparently was one of the ways you could get them some kind of status in the society.
Now, one of the things that Kirshu, you right before you went live, you said, "Hey, have you heard about this thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows?" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" So fill us in here. This is from that Park Place where they have hired this LGBTQ activist.
Yeah, they hired this woman. I was going to talk about this on my stream, but I hadn't gotten to it. Her name is Sachi Schmidt-Hori.
She looks like she's about to lure Flash Gordon into a space trap in that photo. Are you seeing it?
Yeah, so she was one of the consultants that worked on the game, and she is also an associate professor at Dartmouth University.
Okay.
Her biography states that she's an activist, and she says, "I am interested in investigating how gender, sexuality, corporality, and power are represented and negotiated in pre-17th century Japanese narratives and illustrations. My first book, Tales of Idolized Boys, Male-Male Love in Medieval Japanese Narratives, is on medieval Ichigo Monogatari, Buddhist acolyte tales, which often depict romantic relationships between Buddhist priests and adolescent boys.
Oh,
These tales challenge a host of normative and moral standards we, academics especially, internalize, including such ideas as sexual orientation, transgenerational sex, and sexual agency." And her book is very long.
Is that what they're calling it now, by the way? Transgenerational sex is really...
I had to look that up because I was like, what is transgenerational sex?
They're like Doc Brown shows up with a friggin' box of condoms. What?
Apparently, it's when, like, if the Buddhist monk had relationships with adolescent boys, then that Buddhist monk, if they had offspring, would be predisposed to both liking adolescent boys and homosexuality.
So I've got a simple, small, tiny question. Just tiny question.
Yeah. Okay.
What does this have to do with a game about ninjas in Japan?
I mean, I guess she's part Japanese, so they were like, "All right, you clearly know what you're talking about."
Okay.
You think Ubisoft even know they're making a game at this point?
I don't think so. Oh my god. And she talks about why she was doing this kind of investigation in the first place. And in her book, which it's like 200 and something pages, it's way too much to read. But part of her book says, "A seed for this research was planted in my heart when I was 9 or 10. Throughout my childhood, my mother implicitly demonstrated to me how the covert, unspoken rules of human relations could play out in our lives. During the 1980s, my mother, a young single parent of 3, worked at a nightclub in Kabukicho, an entertainment and red light district of Tokyo. Instead of driving a cab, authoring novels, treating cancer patients, or teaching math, my mother dressed impeccably and entertained her patrons after their long, stressful workdays. She regarded these men not only as the source of her income, but also friends and allies. As unusual as my childhood was, I was generally content with the choice my mother made in order to keep a roof over our heads and save money for the future. Strangers, however, were less willing to accept someone like my mother as an ordinary citizen. Neighbors and my schoolmates' parents tended to see her as simultaneously sleazy, pietous, and angelic. Sleazy because of an inexplicable, though not uncommon in Japan, contempt for women who use any amount of their sexuality to make a living. Pietous for enduring such a shameful act as working as a hostess. And angelic for debasing herself out of love for her children. Although I always found these sentiments equally absurd and infuriating, my mother never seemed to pay attention to the moral crusaders who wished a more respectable job upon her. And then the clincher here, which would have meant the acceptance of a huge pay cut. So this woman is coming from the position that it's okay to do this kind of work because otherwise you would have to accept less money for quote-unquote regular jobs.
No, because otherwise she'd have to accept that her mom was a whore.
Yeah.
That's what's going on there. There's deep and abiding denial here is what's going on. Holy buckets. Yeah, I had heard some of this. I had not realized how deep the vein went. That's wild.
she talks about age as a social construct in regards to the adolescent boy and adult monk relationships as well. And it's crazy that she's just like, look, we can come in and look at these things objectively, just like historians do with war. War happens, and we can cover it without having to feel icky. But then she goes on to make like long defenses of it and compare it to like age gap relationships and homosexuality today. And it's just like, what are you doing, lady?
I mean, really, what this comes down to is this lady, she doesn't have daddy issues. She, as you said, she has mommy issues, right? She has issues with a one-parent household where her mom was, spread her legs wider than, the freaking canal. It's crazy. and she's trying to justify her mom sucking that dick. That's really what it comes down to. That's true. What, Blaz?
Actual father.
Dick.
Yeah, there we go.
That's right. Right. Lots of a dick. That's it's crazy.
Thanks, Malik.
Well, and now she's being rewarded for that. Now this has become her profession.
No, she's getting rewarded because she's not from America or Britain or particularly what. Like that's why. At the end of the day, she's being rewarded for her ethnicity because Ubisoft have quotas. That's just how that works.
Wow.
Go ahead,
Kirsten.
I was about to say, IGN had an interview with her, and in IGN's little article, they introduce her as Sachi Schmidt-Hori, a professor of Japanese literature and culture.
Wait, her mom was a whore and her last name is Hori?
Yes, I know. The jokes write themselves.
It's like Dick Buttkiss. What is going on here? All right.
She was like, working with Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed Shadows, Sachi Schmidt-Hori says, Yasuke has been featured in many creative writings and media. If you go to Wikipedia for Yasuke's page, there's a long, long list of novels, TV series, and dramas that have been inspired by him. He's a historical character or somebody who was inspired by him. I think people in Japan really, really embrace him as a character, and we really like to see him representing the samurai spirit. And it's just like, how do you call her like a literature and culture person when she writes about the positivity of adolescent adult male relationships?
Well, it makes more so. I mean, isn't she going to have to write side quests? How is this going to go? Because it's not like this is an unfamiliar practice in feudal Japan or in any country. During their feudal periods. Like, what's gonna creep into the script here? I wonder. That's kind of what I'm more alarmed about.
Yasuke gonna pick up some of those child brides along the way, Like...
Right? I don't know, man.
Wow. Well, this is some quick research on her. She is, you mentioned Dartmouth, right? And Dartmouth is Ivy League, and we see what's happening over there, with all their bravery. It's really amazing to see how these people find their way into the video game space. Like, who approached who in this situation? Did Ubisoft approach her? Did she approach Ubisoft? I'm guessing it was probably her approaching Ubisoft and her doing the whole what was the thing with Sweet Baby Inc. where they threaten you and they say, hey, let them know. Let them know how bad it's going to get if they don't.
Maybe not. If they got hiring quotas and they have diversity quotas, then automatically the first thing, and nobody talks about this. This goes for anything, government agencies, bureaucracies. The first thing that takes a hit is the quality of the candidates that are actually hired. Right. This is how we wound up with problems with like foreign agents infiltrating what later became the CIA, right? The OSS had huge hiring quotas during World War II. And because they had to hire X number of people, they didn't vet anyone. So you wound up with, oh yeah, he's got a thick Chinese accent and a giant red flag arm patch on. Oh yeah, he's good. Go ahead and hire him for the OSS. And we wound up with all kinds of problems with documents being stolen and blah. We essentially have that on an industry-wide level now. Right? Yeah. We need someone named Ching Chong Wing Wong, so we've got to hire them, and it's gotta happen, and we can't vet them at all.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, if there's somebody out there named Ching Chong Wing Wong, I will hire you immediately.
Ching Chong Wing Wong, Hyundai Mitsubishi, yes.
I don't care about your qualifications. As long as your legal name is Ching Chong Wing Wong, I
I
will
just want to
hire
be able
you
to say
right
your
now.
name in front of an office full of people daily.
Yes.
Hey, everybody, I'd like to bring in our DEI hire, Ching Chong Wing Wong here. He's right here. Hello, everybody.
And the fact that they're driving it into like we need the hirings to reflect accurately the demographics of the country, but then they hire way over that demographic target.
Right.
It's like you're not doing what you're saying you're doing. You're using that subversive language. I see you.
The language is real, and it is.
We have an entire month for homosexuals, which is like how much of the population? Like 2% or something. Like it's
There's
nobody.
like so many days for them too.
Right.
Like, throughout the year, and it's just increasing more and more. Like Transgender Day of Visibility, Black trans.
The
people,
founding of the country gets
One
day, and 2% of the population get a month.
when they
Plus.
when
That'd be
they
a part
did
of
plus.
when they did like Transgender Remembrance Week, I think it was last year, somebody posted like an image of like how many different holidays that they had throughout the entire year, and I was like, God, that's so many.
Yeah, I think it was like 100. It was over half the year. I think it was like 187 out of the 365 days had something devoted to LGBTQ plus whatever.
Yeah.
And it's I'm really honestly surprised that somebody out there hasn't created like some sort of straight flag. Just be like, I like.
Yeah,
I
it's like the American flag has everybody in there.
There was the super straight meme for a while, the super straight flag.
I don't get it. It's like, do we need an entire month to celebrate anything at all? Like my
Every
birthday.
time you do this, it's just separating people more. It's like Asian Heritage Month, Black History Month, LGBT
like
Month. It's like, but okay, I get learning the history of all these things. Sure, why not? That's what school is for, learning the history properly, no agendas. And then they just throw it all in there. And now everybody's like, what about this? What about that? And it's like, okay. And now it's like everybody has a thing. And it's like, okay,
Well,
so
they
nobody's
do that on
included.
purpose because if they can keep us divided and they can keep us fighting on like petty lines like race and gender, then we're not going to be able to band together and actually do anything to the powers that are ruling over us.
Yep,
Right.
that's true.
That's all about the collective, right? Your birthday barely gets a single evening, but strangers cornholing each other, they get an entire month. Because it's all about the collective. They belong to a collective. You're not the one person doesn't get celebrated. You can kind of see the philosophical byplay there. I don't know how we got that far afield from this chick talking about dudes blowing monks or whatever.
For a moment.
Welcome to Side Scrollers.
Really
yes.
girl.
I have not seen this. The super.
We need to get back on topic to the man-boy love. For crying
That's
out
true. Nambla.
What is that?
Is this real? Is this a real thing? The super
It's not real as in it's
okay.
not like recognized, but it's real insofar as people made a meme out of it after one of the iterations of the pride flag after the rainbow and before the clusterfuck we have now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's great. I'll say this: the design work on this, while quality, it's definitely missing the oomph of all the colors. It's very bland,
Yeah.
So, whatever.
It looks like a supervillain's flag in like a comic book or something, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like Hydra.
Branding is a big part of this whole thing, and I'll tell you that they got the branding down, except for that new flag, man. That new flag is nuts.
I had only ever seen.
Dude, it looks like a test pattern.
Yeah. I was gonna say I've only ever seen the new flag with like all the different stripes and arrows and the circle on it online. But when I went on vacation up north, there were unironically houses in Massachusetts and New Hampshire that had that Giga Pride flag being flown out on their house.
Wow.
Guess they got the new software update.
I guess so.
That's a pretty good racket because they keep updating the flag, so they got to keep going out and buying new ones. Otherwise, you're a bigot.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the iPhone.
Yeah, right. Every year there's a new one. That's right.
Oh man. If I can go back to the woman's book for a second, there's a citation in here. One of her citations for her book is from a book called Sex and Harm in the Age of Consent by Joseph J. Fischel. from Minneapolis University of Minnesota Press in 2016. And it says, although sex offenders certainly include those who are attracted to young children, Fischel's primary focus is adults who develop mutual attractions and form sexual relationships with teenagers. His analysis on the recent shift in the American legal system and media representations, as in positive portrayals of LGBTQ individuals and the demonization of transgenerational sexuality, is applicable to how contemporary scholarship on the Chico system and Chico tales switched its focal point from the same-sexness of the relationships to the age difference. So what he's saying is that people went from a homophobic attitude towards Chico to now focusing on the age difference instead. And it's like it always should have been on the age difference. What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like putting the emphasis in the Norm Macdonald, Michael Jackson jokes on the homosexual pedophile.
Yeah,
It's like,
right?
no, I think the pedophile says it all.
Wow.
Oh, someone in chat asked, what's Chigo? Chigo are what the male prepubescent children who had sexual relationships with monks were called. So in the book, she tries comparing them to how, like, in Europe as well, children were, put on a pedestal. They were the fruit of the family, how you would continue your lineage. And the same was true in Japan. Your children were like a bargaining chip, and you could use them to sort of get ahead in life, have your children get ahead in life by giving them like religious symbolism, or if they were enshrined as like a child emperor. And so letting the monks have sexual access to your children apparently was one of the ways you could get them some kind of status in the society. I don't know enough to be able to prove this woman right or wrong on that point.
I have a wood chipper named status if they would.
Yeah,
like
right. So it's like, I mean, we all know that those things happened like way back then, like you said earlier, Razor. But it's
Right.
just like, obviously in current year, we wouldn't encourage that kind of thing like this book seems to be going down.
So this lady's involved in Assassin's Creed. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah, she's
Yeah.
a consultant for Assassin's Creed for some reason.
Can't wait for a half-assed version of Ghost of Tsushima written by Pedo Pete and the preteen pooper posse, whatever.
Clearly the #1 authority on Japanese culture.
Oh my god.
Wow.
God. That's ridiculous. Well, thanks for that.
Wow.
Hey,
I brought
hey,
you
Craig.
cursed knowledge.
Hey, Craig, is there anything else we can talk about? Anything else in the heliocentric
Yeah,
solar
literally
system?
anything. Like, I
Yes.
missed when we were talking about eels on the show months ago.
Oh, no. Well, at least the eels were consensual adults.
Oh.
Ugh.